Welcome to 100. Nope. Well, welcome to episode 184 of Awkwardly Awesome. Okay, take three. Welcome to episode 184 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. It's amazing as human beings we can get tripped up on anything, and then the exciting part is we can move forward again. Anyway, thanks for being here. I'm excited to have a conversation with this man who approached me after a presentation I had given at a conference in San Diego a few years ago. He was full of quiet confidence, kindness, and enthusiasm for the speech I had given. The words he shared with me that day changed my life for the better. I've come to, over the years, I've come to know him as just this amazing leader with a passion for helping so many people live the best lives, and he's just fascinating. So I'm very excited to bring him on. But first, this.
Today's guest, Edward Amy.
Well, welcome back. Let me tell you a little bit more about Edward. He is CEO of J. Nolan Community Services, an organization that empowers people who have autism and or other disabilities to live amazing lives. His forward-thinking leadership and confident action taking have paved the way for many who might have otherwise had substantially less opportunity. Please welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast, Edward Amy.
It is a pleasure to be here, Jason. Thank you, and I think you hyped me more than I should get.
Thanks for being here, my friend. So have you taken any trips recently?
I have actually just about 3 weeks ago. We got back from a trip, a week in Egypt and a week in Kenya, and it was absolutely amazing.
What's that like for the viewers who haven't yet been to those places?
I think it's humbling, right? It's different cultures and amazing history, beautiful nature. The people of Kenya they're just beautiful inside and out. We're still in contact now. We exchanged information on WhatsApp. We're still talking with some of our host guides from Egypt and our safari guide and hosts from the lodge in Kenya. We went to the Masai Mara game reserve, which in Kenya, that's the way it sits. It's like, so they border up against Tanzania. In Tanzania, it's called the Serengeti. Most people have heard of that. And that western upper, like sort of northern portion of it, when it crosses over into Kenya, is named for the people and the river that runs through all of that, which is the Mara, and then the people there, the Maasai. And our guide was a Maasai, and just an amazing human being. And it's just it is so humbling to be in such nature. To be at one point, we were sitting in our vehicle, it's a canvas side rolled up. There's nothing between me and the animals except grass. And I'm about 10 or 12 feet from a full-grown male African lion. So now I know what it feels like to be lunch, right? Fortunately, he wasn't hungry. But when they look at you, you know that's what a gazelle feels like, and you're like, that's really uncomfortable.
Wow. Wow.
It's humbling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Actually, there's like a background hum. Could you maybe use your headphones or was
Yeah,
on
let's see. Let me try
before?
my headset. I've got a USB headset. Let's see if that helps us. Where is it? Probably should have started out wearing this. Sorry.
Yeah, but when you asked me before, I didn't hear anything, but now I do.
All right, how's that? Can you hear me on that one? Let me try.
Now it's better. Can you
That's
hear
better.
me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Cool. So how long had you dreamed of going to Africa?
If interestingly, actually, our initial when we first booked the trip was almost a year before we went, and our original trip was Egypt and then Israel, and obviously with the conflict that broke out in Gaza and all that, we were like, we can't go there. So we were talking to the folks that helped plan out and build our trip, and they had an option that to go to Kenya, and my wife absolutely loves giraffes. Right, she's like her thing. And so I'm like, honey, what do you think? We could go see them like right there. So we decided to do that, and that turned out to be, I don't know, it might even been the better part of the trip. It's hard to say because I just so love the history, and we saw so much amazing history in Egypt. But when we began to think about it, was about 4 months out that we made the switch, and then after that, it became like just we couldn't get here fast enough to go there, and it was everything we could possibly imagine it could be and more.
So what was it like for your wife to see giraffes in the wild?
Oh man, her eyes just lit up. I mean, it was like a kid on Christmas morning, right? She was just in such joy, and of course, you love somebody and they're having such joy, it makes you happy. So we had the best time. It was super exciting.
Speaking of kids, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Southern California. In fact, I'm a pretty local boy, like even where I work now and where I live. So I live in the city where I was born, but then my parents quickly moved just a little bit away to an area called Simi Valley, which is in Ventura County, and so that's where I grew up. And I didn't even go that far away to go to college. Undergrad, I just went up to a little bit north into Santa Barbara. Went to UC Santa Barbara, go Gauchos. And then I did my graduate work. I came back and I did my graduate work at Cal State Northridge, which is like 3 miles from my office. And I live back in that same city, Santa Clarita, where where I was, born. So I'm about as local as it gets. That's why I like to travel so much, because I didn't live very far away from where I grew up.
What was it like growing up in a place that's so often in the movies? And
it's fun, and it does kind of sort of desensitize you to it. Like some people say, "Oh my gosh, you saw stars!" And yeah. I mean, both places, Simi Valley and Santa Clarita. I mean, I go to church with some pretty prominent actors, and they're just people, right? That you get to know them as just people, and you get to hear fun stories about behind the scenes and stuff. But yeah, where I grew up, that's where they shot MASH. That's where they shot Little House on the Prairie. Some of those TV shows that are part of everybody's growing up, and it was a big deal in town when they were doing the last episode of Little House on the Prairie, because like they were like blowing up the set or something. It was really wild. But yeah, that was big news. That one was big news. But yeah, we even had a lot of the old westerns and stuff back in the day. So yeah, it's fun.
So as a kid, were you able to watch them shooting these things
Once in
up?
a while, yeah, once in a while you got to. Then when they stopped using, there was an area called Corriganville, which is really where like a lot of the old westerns, like the Johnny Weissmuth, old Tarzans, the some John Wayne movies like Sands of Iwo Jima, and the old black and white Lone Ranger show were all shot in that area. And when they stopped shooting in that area, you could go out and tour it and go see. We did that as a school project a lot to get to go out there and see the scenes. And like, oh yeah, that's where they shot that. But you know, once in a while you got to see something. But the sets were way away from town, like up in the mountain area, the hills, so that you had to make a special trip to go out there. But occasionally they would be shooting in town. I remember uh, when we got our big movie theater, we had one movie theater had like two screens, and then it was a big deal when they built a man theater which had six theaters in it. We're like, whoa! Well, that ends up in a bunch of movies because it was in the middle of town. It was a nice, you could shoot easy there, and so there were several TV shows and movies that one man six theater showed up in.
Yeah, if I had known you when you were 7, and asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, what would you have said?
I would have told you I wanted to be a police officer.
What did you like about the idea of being a police officer?
So a couple things. So one, my parents divorced when I was really really young, and then I was adopted by my stepdad. So that was kind of cool. But when I learned, kind of a little bit more about my background and whatnot, found out that my biological father was a policeman, and I kind of became fascinated with that and thought that was really cool. Thought helping people. I always had this kind of a thing about I'm going to help some people somehow, right? One way or another. Um, so that's kind of what and then I even as I was older I went on ride-alongs with some of the Simi Valley Police and really great people there. Fantastic police department. Very community oriented. So really, it had a real positive image and potential for me, and I thought very seriously about being a police officer, even as a young age, and even into my teens.
So what moved you from being a police officer? Did you still want to be a police officer in college?
No, that actually was the point at which it kind of shifted. One, when I was 17, I was in a really bad car accident that caused a lot of damage to my back. So it was likely I probably wouldn't have made it through the physical components of being a police officer. And I just began to think about it. What is it that I wanted to do when I wanted to help people? So it turns out I landed on wanting to be a therapist. Actually, I took a class, a psychology class in high school, and went, "Wow, this is very interesting. This has the potential to really help people." So that's where the shift happened, and I kind of went away from that. And here's an interesting tidbit: my father, obviously I knew him then. We had a relationship that was the police officer. He was happy to hear that I didn't want to be a policeman, that I was going to go to college and I was going to be a therapist, and because he knows how dangerous it is, and he's already got to, he's got to make sure he stays safe. And then he's like, I don't want to worry about you somewhere having to be safe. So my parents, and my father and his wife were all like, yeah, great, don't be a cop. That's cool.
Cool. That's nice that your family are happy by not going into the.
Not doing something right. Yeah.
Awesome. What fascinated you about studying psychology?
It was the insight into human behavior, right? The whys behind some of the choices that we make, the behaviors. Because sometimes if you look at somebody from the outside, you're like, that makes no sense. Why would they do that? They're just hurting themselves. Those kinds of things you hear people say, and so I was really fascinated with. But if you could get to the why, you can help somebody make a different choice. And that's like giving them back something, giving them back control over their lives and their decisions, because there's nothing worse than feeling like it's happening to you, yet you're actually the one doing it and you can't see that. And that's what fascinated me about being in a therapy role and being of support to people, to help them kind of break those patterns that are not beneficial to them.
And it sounds really interesting because the patterns are often hidden than not in plain sight. Oh, I guess that's what hidden means, Jason.
But no, but you're right, because it could be hidden from others, but the person understands it. But a lot of times it's hidden from the person. I don't understand why I'm doing that, right? It makes no sense to even me. And when you open those up and you kind of show it, and they look at that again and go, wow, because there are times when our behaviors or our choices, they made sense at a certain part in our life, and they become a habit, like you said, they're sort of in a rhythm. But we're in a different place in life, but we're still doing that because it's a habit now, and now it's not beneficial. It's helping people see that, I think, oftentimes that you're like, whoa, well, I don't need that anymore. No, you don't. You're not in that same environment. So these aren't the same people that you had to have those defenses about. It's really powerful, and there's a joyful reward in seeing somebody, come to a realization and then choose to like take that opportunity to change their own life. Because you can't change people, and that's not your job. No matter what you do in life, changing people is not your role. That
And
each
it's
person,
not going to work.
it's not, right? And the role is to be of support. You don't want to support somebody hurting themselves, right? You want to support them making better choices or whatever it might be. But as a therapist, as a police officer, right, you really not you're impacting somebody. You're stopping them from doing something they shouldn't do, like when you're arresting somebody, but you're not really changing their behavior. They have to choose that. And you may be intervening so they don't hurt themselves or somebody else. But at some point, for that to stop, they still have to make that decision. And it's like that for any of us. You can support, teach, show, whatever it is your role is in somebody else's journey. You can do those things, but ultimately that person, right, just like for me, I have to take it in and go, yeah, I want that. Or same thing for the other person, like, okay, I see that, yeah, I'm going to use that the information that I have now and make different choices. I think that's what leadership is all about, right? Whether you're a teacher in a classroom, whether you're a police officer on the street, whether you're a CEO of a company, whether you're a public speaker and an entrepreneur, right? Ultimately, our role is to lead, and leading is always towards something, right? You don't lead people away from something. That's just panic. That's just running. You lead people toward, and what you want to do is lead them toward something healthy, something better, something growth oriented.
Profound. So you decided not to go down the road of becoming a therapist.
Right.
How did that decision come about?
Yeah, that one's the one I chuckle about, right? Because I went to school for that. I spent a lot of money on education, and I had a really good sort of coming out of the graduate school, getting my opportunity to do what's called an internship. You've got to intern in that. Was a wonderful, private practice with fantastic mentor therapists teaching me a lot. And I was just one day I was sitting and in between sessions and supporting folks. I'm like, this isn't it. I know I want to help, but one at a time isn't the way I can do it. And I also know, you have to also recognize that things about yourself. And I grew up with attention deficit disorder, so that sitting still is not my strength. And I just knew it was something where I needed to be moving and busy and constantly focused on a lot of things at one time. That seemed to just fit and feel more like what I need. obviously I need to go away sometimes. I need to what I call decompress and have some downtime, but when I'm working and I'm about, the growth and development of the people around me, it needs to be a little busy. And so when I looked at the sort of what could I do with my training and my degree and my desire, and I landed on foster care and adoption. Actually, I became a social worker, working with a lot of kids in a lot of families all at the same time, and that was a really profound experience for me because I wasn't even a parent yet. So I think that helped me become a better parent as well, because I learned as much from my foster parents as they ever were going to learn from me. But I get to impact people's lives. I get to help heal families and utilize all those therapy skills, and as well as my desire to just help people, lead them towards something, right? Lead them towards health, lead them towards harmony in their family and new ways of dealing with things. And I was in that arena for many years. I really, I grew myself in that, and I I reflect on many wonderful experiences. In fact, I'm still friends with one of the set of foster parents that I placed a young girl in their home at the age of 8 months, and they taught me so much too. They were just very very powerfully loving people.
Hmm.
And when I placed the young lady, well, she's a young lady now, but I placed that little girl in their home, I said, look, this is what the doctors have said. She may never walk. She probably will be developmentally delayed. She's been through a lot. And they were just nodded and listened to me, and they're like, okay, thanks. Yeah, we'll be fine. And they really, really were. They were amazing, amazing people. And that young lady, by the way, is now married. And not only does she walk, she actually, her degree is in dance, and she's a dance teacher. She graduated high school in the top of her class. She is incredible. She's an incredible human being, and it's not often that a social worker gets to see all of that, right? That whole lifetime, and well, up to this point, but that whole journey. And I've had the blessing of knowing them and seeing this, and I can't put into words the joy. And I think that's what I found out about myself. I'm a huge fan of a gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek, and a lot of people know Simon and his philosophy of like, know your why. Like, why? What's that why that makes you do what you do? Know it, nurture it, and find that place that you can do that. And while it's been a little bit of a different journey, and it lands down to where I am now, I know my why, I live my why, and it's like putting on the most comfortable pair of shoes when you have that. Every day I get to go to work, I get to do this, and I am blessed abundantly by the people I get to work with, because we get to impact people's lives. Can't do it for them, right? But you can impact, and you can show, and you can open up possibilities and let those people step into it, whatever arena you're in. If you open up possibilities for people and allow them to step into it, people will blow your mind about what they're capable of. And I believe people live up to the opportunity.
People live up to the opportunity. Wow, that's a great phrase. Part of your why has to do with your faith. Could
Mhm.
you say a bit about that integral part of your life?
Absolutely. So for about almost 6 years, I was the executive director for a Christian school in the San Fernando Valley area of Los Angeles, called Los Angeles Lutheran High. Over the course of time, we actually merged a bunch of schools together and rebranded the whole group of schools from K to 12 as the Concordia schools. And in that process, because that my faith background is a Lutheran Christian, I went back to school and became a Lutheran minister as well. And the thing I think that I garnered most from all of that was what it really means to be a leader, right? And that is to be a servant leader. The role of any person, whether it's the captain of a ship, CEO of a company, like I said, teacher in a classroom, parent in your family, whatever role that you are in as the opportunity to lead, is to serve others, so that they have, again, you're opening up possibilities and opportunities for them to step into. And that's what's been very integral for me, is recognizing that I've often said it to this. I get the opportunity here at Jay Nolan to do the new hire orientation. So they rotate it through all the leaders, which is something that we do. I think it's very important. So sometimes it might be the CFO, sometimes it might be one of the program directors, and sometimes it's me. And I really enjoy it when it's my turn. And I'll tell the new staff that you have to really understand that I see the org chart. There's always org charts, right, with companies. There's a CEO, and then there's this, and there's this, and yeah, that all exists for structural purposes. But for me, as I see my role, it's upside down, right? You need to rotate it down here. I am here, and my role is to make sure that I steward the organization in such a way that the resources are always available to them to do the work we said we're going to do, to meet mission and change people's lives, for and give them the opportunity to change their trajectory. And that's how I see it, because that's what my faith has taught me. And I can tell you, every single time when I lose sight of that and I start going down the road of I'm CEO boss guy, it just crashes and burns. It just doesn't work. But when I go at it and I approach it as I'm a steward, it is my role to serve and make sure that the organization has the resources it needs to do what it's promised to do. That's when it's successful. And so that's in a way that it impacts my leadership, and it also it helps me to be open to the beauty of a very diverse and exciting workforce. Right now, we have about 700 employees, and while I wish I could know each and every one of them, when I get the chance to meet my, the team, whether it's a frontline person, whether it's a, someone in finance or someone in IT, whatever it might be, it's a tremendous joy for me, because we're all doing our different parts. We're all bringing our unique skills towards a common mission, and that's to help make our community a better place. And that's part of, I guess, my DNA. It's like, if I'm going to be here on the planet, it's not to be a receiver. It's to help make it a better place, to leave the planet a little bit better, even if it's a tiny bit better, because I walked it. Then I'll know that I've done what I set out to do.
In a video, you say Jay Nolan. I love this. Jay Nolan is about changing the world, but the reality of it is that happens one person at a time.
Yep, it's true. And it really, if you think about it, that's everybody's opportunity, right? You can change the world, and you do it one person at a time, one interaction at a time. That the standing in the in the line at the grocery store, and there's lots and lots of people, and in front of you, the cashier is going as fast as they can, and you could tell that they've been at that for a good, maybe their shift's almost over, it's almost 8 hours for them or something, and they've been on their feet, and you smile at them and you say, hey, thanks so much, right? You thank them for the help that day. You made a little bitty, tiny bitty difference. Then those things grow, right? You ask them how they're doing. It's funny, people respond. It's interesting nowadays. Like just simple things like calling customer service for something. And the other day, I called it for my credit card because I had a question, and the person said, hi, I'm so and so. How can I help you today? And I said, oh, nice to meet you. How are you? And I threw him for a second. It was like silent for a second. She's like, I'm doing really well today. Thank you for asking. Because they talk to hundreds of people in a day, right? And you just try that, just a little bit, and because we need that. We're made to be in community. That's how human beings thrive. We don't do well alone. We don't.
Yeah.
We're not designed to be alone. And I think if we seek opportunities to create, build, and nurture community, it's what Jay Nolan's all about, um, then we do that. We leave the planet a little bit better for having been here. Um, I, heard, I had a pastor of mine say something, in a sermon one time, and it resonated with me. I was like, wow, I have to think about that. He said, he's like, I've done a lot of funerals. I've gone to a lot of bedsides at hospitals in those end times. And he says, and I can tell you, I have never in my entire pastoral career, and he'd been a pastor for almost 40 years at that point, I have never had someone say to me, hey, would you go bring that employee of the month award? Or, hey, would you go bring my stack of spreadsheets? Or would you go get my briefcase? No, they ask for people. Would you get my wife? Would you get my grandkids? Would you bring, right? That's our legacy, is relationships. And that really hit me. I'm thinking, you're right. That no, people don't ask for the awards and the doodads they got. What they want is to know that they mattered in somebody's life, and to tell somebody else, hey, you mattered in mine. And I can't think of a better career for me personally than to get to do that every day, to try to communicate to other people, hey, you matter in my life, and to do and serve for them, that maybe I can matter just a little bit because I made it about them.
Well, and I love thinking about the ripple effect, how you're being kind to the cashier maybe allows them more freedom to be kind to someone else, and
Right.
then that keeps going.
I firmly believe in that. I think the ripple effect is very, very real. I think I've been the beneficiary of it at some point too, where you're just like, wow, that person really was just so nice, or went that extra mile, to help me. And, and it makes you make different decisions, it makes you act a little differently. And I know I do think that God smiles on that, because there's lots of controversy, there's lots of conversations about religions and faiths and cultures and all that, and I get that, and but one of the things that I hold firmly to is that we're called upon to love one another. We're called upon to care about our neighbor, and if everybody just did that, wow, right? If we weren't just so focused on what's in it for me, uh, um, or winning, whatever that means, because I think we've fallen too easily into this rhythm that for me to win means somebody else has to lose. And I don't think that, I mean, separate from sports where you keep the score, that's fine, that's a game. But in life, that's not a way to live, in my opinion.
So you're big into creating win-win scenarios.
I don't really think there's another option. I don't, if in life you're after a scenario where you think that an option is you win and somebody loses, I don't really think there's a win in that. It might look like it, but it's going to be short term. And if you're really looking at something to be a win for you personally, and you take that seriously, and you look down the line, you're like, a win today means a win tomorrow. It's going to, there's no other option. It has to be a win-win. It has to be where everybody buys in and goes, yeah, that's the direction we're going. That's what I want for my life. Look how it fits where it wants for your life. I mean, if you look at it as I've got to beat that person out, it'll always be a short-term win, and it'll be over. And then I don't know, a month, a year, whatever, but it will not last. It will not stick.
And then that person probably won't especially want to talk to you because you
right
just beat
yeah,
them.
you've lost out on a relationship. So how can you call this a win? Whatever happened, you can't call it a win if it cost a relationship.
Whatever happened, you can't call it a win it costs a relationship. That's a way to down on it.
Yeah.
So before Jay Nolan, had you worked with people with disabilities?
Yeah, yes, I have. I actually worked for an organization in South Pasadena that had two special education schools, a mental health division, a full inclusion preschool, which was really, really cool. In fact, whenever I was having a bad day, like too much stuff piled on, I'd just take a break, go down, hang out in the preschool with the kids, and 5 minutes, I was feeling much better just watching how kids just play and kids, young kids have the definition of forgiveness and grace down pat because they natively do it. So, you watch these kids and maybe one kid has, he's on the spectrum and something didn't go his way and he has an outburst and he's, flails out and he falls out on the floor and he's upset. Staff is supporting and, helping him. And the other kids are like, whoa, okay. And they go back to playing, give it 10 minutes. This kid comes back, joins back into playing. And they're like, yeah. And they just go back to playing. Like, it's all good. You're done. You're done with that. Okay, cool. Let's do this. And don't care. They don't care. Little kids do not hold grudges. That's adult problem. And, so it was refreshing to go do that. But yeah, we worked and we had a program that helped support folks to work in a role they enjoyed, get them, to seek and get employment, to engage the community, learn community skills. So a lot of this, some similar things to here at Jay Nolan as well. I'm a huge proponent of supported employment services to help people find the right job for them. Oftentimes people think, well, if you don't fit a certain mold, then you can't be an employee somewhere. Like, well, you got that wrong. Look, I don't fit a mold, right? I mean, I had a learning disability. I run an organization. Again, somebody opened up opportunities for me. I stepped into them. And so I owe a debt of gratitude to spend the rest of my professional career to be worthy of that person's goal of helping my life be better. So it's a pay it forward, right? Just like you talked about that ripple effect, and and especially because I can't go back and talk to that teacher that made that turn in my life. I've tried multiple times to find her, to be honest, and I can't. So my hope is that just I create enough of a ripple effect that she feels it somewhere on the planet.
So there was a specific teacher who created a ton in your life.
Yeah, and it's an interesting story. I sometimes when I do speaking engagements, I'll talk about this. But so again, like I mentioned, I had attention deficit disorder with hyperactivity. I did not read well.
And at what age was that kind of diagnosed?
I think that I was probably kindergarten, first grade when they're like, that's what's going on here. And at that time, right, it's quite a few years ago, there really was only one medication on available, and that was Ritalin. And they were still kind of like trying to figure out what was the best use of it, amounts, and all that. And my parents were like, no. So we were going at this just adjusting diet. They really cut a lot of refined sugar out of my diet, which helped a lot. And just being supportive and trying to help me change my behavior and make choices. And I was I was doing okay, but we tried a couple of different schools. Didn't always work out so well. My parents are abundantly patient. And then in fifth grade, probably had the worst thing that could happen to a young kid who's kind of on the fence, right? I kind of feel stupid, right? Because I'm not getting it, because I'm not paying attention half the time. And I just exasperated this fifth grade teacher. And she looked at me and she said, I kid you not, a teacher, you're a moron and you're never going to amount to anything. And I'm like, wow, right? In the moment, I'm thinking, I say, wow, now. In the moment, I just took it in. I'm like, yeah, of course, she's right. I know who I am. I get in trouble all the time. Of course she's right. Now, it made me mad, but I didn't disagree with her, right? I didn't tell my parents that, but
So
honestly, because
so
they
like
probably would agree in my mind, right? They wouldn't have, but I would have thought that. Yeah.
you thought your parents would do what if they heard that?
I'm sorry, what?
You thought if you had told them, what do you think your folks would do?
My mom probably would have marched down to school and gave that teacher a piece of her mind. My mom was my biggest fan and my biggest cheerleader and my biggest support. Um, and she probably would have, if to describe it, she probably would have gone up one side, danced on that teacher's head, and went down the other. Um, but
So
but in the
so
back of their
you
mind,
you
you know,
held you
yeah,
held this inside.
yeah, I held it inside because I think in the back of my mind, after that, I was like, yeah, she's right. So I just kept it. But
So what
uh,
was this turning?
the turning point comes the following year. Thank God, right? It was that fast. In his infinite knowledge and wisdom, I get Miss Chattery. I will never forget her name. And she was my 6th grade teacher. She looked at my report cards, from the previous year, looked at all this stuff. She met with each parent to start the year because it's that turning point. This is the last year for us. That was last year of elementary, then you're going on to middle school. And she sat down with my mom and I, and she said, okay, first off, this is not your best. Right out of the gate. This is not your best. And I'm going to get the best out of you. And here's how we're going to do it. Every time you cut up in class and you take time away from the class, you're going to give that back to me at recess or lunch. And for a kid with ADD, that's the worst torture in the world. You mean I'm going to have to give up playtime and come back in the classroom? Kill me now. And that, so I'm going to focus on you. We're going to do this. My desk got moved to right by the teacher. And then one of the things that it wasn't in that meeting when she described that she was going to focus on me and help me, but she also did this with us, the whole class. Is that when we came in from recess or we came in from the playtime after lunch, she did guided meditation to kind of bring everybody calm down. I had no idea how profound that would be for a kid like me, because I'm wired when I come in, right? It'd take me a good half hour, 45 minutes before I'm paying attention to anything. She would do that 5-10 minutes max, and everybody's focused. Yeah. Now I wasn't, my behavior didn't turn perfect, but I moved from the lowest reading group to, a much higher reading group. I read really slow still. It's just kind of how it is, but I was reading. My math skills really skyrocketed. And by the way, it only took a few times. Let me tell you, it only took a few times cutting up in class, giving up my recess before I stopped doing that. And so, I had never in my entire up to that point, so up to 6th grade, I had never gotten an A on anything in my school career, and I finished my 6th grade year with all A's and 1 B+. And my mom cried.
It's like I'm not your mom, but it's like goosebumpy.
I looked at it and I'm like, I did that? And she's like, yeah, you did. She goes, and because she was tough. She was hard on me, right? She's tough, but in a good way, the tough love. She's like, and I'm not going to give you what you don't deserve. And I'm like, no, you're not. And my mom grabbed that report card, my standardized test scores that finished out the year. She goes marching down to the middle school. And again, God's timing on everything. She goes into the principal's office and she says, I need my son into the gifted program. And he's like, but that's a whole testing procedure and all that. And she's like, I don't care. If you don't keep challenging him, I'll lose him. I need you to do this. And here's the best part. He's retiring the next year. He's like, all right, whatever. Sure. And and all of a sudden now I'm doing stuff. Right now my attention gets hyper focused on the schooling because I'm like, oh, I can do this. Right. For most of my life up to that point, I didn't think I could and nobody was trying that hard. And I became really excited about school. Changed me. Miss Chattery going this way, bam. She changes the trajectory of my life. Otherwise, there wouldn't be no going to college. There wouldn't be no going to grad school and all that if it wasn't for her showing me that I had possibilities.
I love this because this is a one story.
It is, right? She focused on me, and she had a whole classroom full of kids, and somehow, I don't know how she did it, but she did that for every one of us. Our needs were different, right? Which is what I love about, Jay Nolan here. I keep coming back. That's why I love being here. Everything we do is individual. It's, what Edward needs is what Edward needs. What Jason needs is what Jason needs. And, each person, like, and we do it that way so that those opportunities are also specific to that person and their skills and their dreams. And, I came that close, right? If there wasn't a Miss Chattery in 6th grade, I came that close to my 5th grade teacher crushing dreams. And no one should ever do that. At least at the minimum, if you are frustrated with somebody, if you're having a hard time with a kid who's really a handful, I'm not telling you they're not. I know I was. But you can not say something, right? You can choose to not verbalize certain things. Just do that. You can say it in your head if you want, but don't be a crusher of dreams. Be an encourager. I had the opportunity to kind of pass a little something like that along with this one kid. I was talking to him, and he had ADD. He was in trouble all the time, and but in his heart, he's a good person. You can tell. And I just asked him, hey, what, you guys got finals coming up, right? Pretty soon. He's a friend of my daughter's at the time, and he's like, yeah. He goes, I said, what do you got this week? He's like, I got my math one this week. He goes, ugh, who knows how that's going to go? I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, I'm not very good at math. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm like, your brain is designed for math. I kid you not. He looked at me like I was an alien. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, you ride BMX, right? The bicycle motocross stuff. He goes, yeah. I said, you do the jumps, and you do flips in the air, and you land on the wheels, and you keep on going, right? He goes, yeah. I said, that's pretty easy for you, right? He goes, well, yeah, I train for it. That's what I do. He goes, do you know how many calculations your brain does in a split second in the air to make sure you land on the wheels and not your melon? I'm like, your brain is pre-wired for math. You're doing math in midair. And he goes, I hadn't thought about it like that. I said, yeah, now you are. Passed his test. You passed that final.
Wonderful.
Because it was in him. I didn't do it. I just made him think differently. Don't turn off that negative voice. You don't need that. That negative voice in your head is never going to help you. So I was just battling against a negative voice in his head. He had the capability, and we just have that opportunity sometimes. Just say a little something, speak into somebody's life in a caring and loving way, and watch the ripple effect. Be honest, right? Don't make stuff up. I firmly believe what I said to that guy, because it's true. Your body's making calculations, otherwise it's going to go really badly. But if you're genuine, and you speak something, because it's, by the way, it's just as easy to be mean as it is to be nice. So why waste time with the mean, right? And ultimately, what's the ripple effect you want to leave? How do you want people to remember you? If you want them to remember you as, wow, I'm really glad that person crossed my path, that's powerful.
So, you've alluded to this many ways throughout the podcast so far, but Jay Nolan provides opportunities to people who experience disabilities. But the other side of that is that people who Jay Nolan helps, they have to step up and say yes, I want this opportunity. I'm going to take advantage of it. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. For me, I guess I'll take tell a story of what I love so much, and what brought me to Jay Nolan, or started my path toward Jay Nolan. So I was working a different location, different organization, very happy with the work I was getting to do. And a recruiter reached out and said, hey, there's this other organization right in your backyard, like right in your community. And this guy knew me. He knew how community oriented I was. I was commuting good 45 minutes to an hour to go to work. And so I said, all right, I'll look. And I looked at it, and I looked about the company, but I was drawn to the logo, Jay Nolan's logo. And you're like, well, come on. I'm like, for real. It's a small boat with two people sitting in it side by side. No one's sitting in front or the back, right? They're side by side, and they each have an oar. And it's like, that's the definition of being in a journey together. Because if they're not in sync, if they're rowing differently, they're going to row around in a circle. Or if nobody rows, nobody's going anywhere. And I looked at that logo and I went, that's how I see being in relationship with people, whatever the relationship might be. In marriage, right? You guys got to row together, or your marriage is going to end up on the rocks, to keep with the boat theme, right? I mean, or if you're there supporting someone, or you're teaching, whatever it is, you're if you ever think about this, like when people do driver's education, right? They get driver's training. Do you notice that the driver instructor doesn't sit in the back seat? He sits in the front seat with the driver. They're side by side, right? So it just resonated with me, and that's what it is. It's, I'm not going to force you, right? We're sitting in the boat together, and if I'm rowing away and you're not, okay, we'll do circles until you're tired of doing circles, or you want to do something else. But we'll open many possibilities. We'll open up many opportunities, and they aren't necessarily all for that person, right? I mean, how many of us are in the first job we ever had? Of course, none of us are, right? That's not for me, or I tried that, or whatever. Same thing, we moved, we tried different communities, whatever it might be. It's a journey, and very few people's journey is a straight line from A to B. No, looks more like spaghetti, right? Yeah. and it's in the going, right? It's in the going that the living gets done. It's not like I've got to get from A to B.
It's in the going that the living gets done.
Yeah, that's
so
life.
Profound, because so many of us, I mean, I'll speak for myself. At times in my life, I've been like, if I can just plan my future perfectly, then I'll go
Yep.
for it. And
I'm guilty of that too, Jason.
What?
But there's a I'm guilty of that same thing, like planning it. And there's a great country song that kind of resonates with me on that one. It's the line of the song is, God bless the broken road that led me straight to you. Right? It's a broken road. It's all this stuff. And if I hadn't made some of the stupid choices I've made in life, and some of the good ones, I wouldn't have crossed paths with my wife, for example. And of course, my life is abundantly better for having been married to her. And I'm going to live longer because she makes me eat healthier. But the truth of the matter is that it's not a straight line. And so trying to impose some sort of artificial premise like that on people as we're supporting them, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we have this, and you schedule. No, it's not life. And so we don't do that. It's let's talk about what you want to do. Let's talk about some of the goals you have. Let's talk about some of the dreams, and let's build a plan. And hey, that plan we might be doing, and you might be like, nope, don't like it anymore. I realize I want to do that. Like I just told you in this, just in this story alone, started out, I want to be a police officer. Then I'm going to be a therapist. And, the road just, and I'm here where I'm supposed to be today.
Even to the first story you told today, you were going to Egypt and Israel. The only reason you went to Kenya is because tragically there's
right.
a lot going on in the Middle East.
And I am a different person now for having even been to Kenya and spent time with those people that we crossed paths with. My journey is different now, even because of it. And like you said, from that, different plan, different, and I feel blessed too. I obviously the reason I continue to be concerned and pray for the people of Israel. But I feel blessed for having spent time with the people of Kenya, and they've given me an additional facet to the my perception of the world and my perception of life. And that's a gift. And the value of that is you can't even put a value on it. It's valuable, is beyond your because it'll be a ripple effect for that too. Years from now, something will be because I was there. And I love that. I love that. That's looking at it as is not a point A to point B, but there's point A, but we're just going till we reach wherever it is, and then we'll go where we, and you just keep on going. And the journey shouldn't have an end, right? It shouldn't.
No.
It might have a pause. It might have a right turn or a left turn, or even maybe a back pedal, but it should never have an end, right?
We're about 56 minutes into this, and I haven't even asked you yet. What does inclusion mean to you?
Inclusion. So we just had our annual autism acceptance picnic, kind of celebrating April and as Autism Acceptance Month and all that. And I know most of the world calls it autism awareness. And I think the stance around that is this: you can be aware of something. It may not have any impact on you whatsoever, and you may not have any impact on them. Aware is just like, yep, there it is. I'm aware there's trees outside my office. I'm not going to do anything about it. But acceptance is that active component of inclusion, right? And I've heard it said this way: diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. And I think that's the same, like whether it's acceptance and awareness and acceptance, the same kind of a thing, and so that's inclusion to me means everybody gets to dance. Whatever dance you do, because by the way, I can't dance. My poor wife, she's like, let's dance. I'm like, honey, I love you too much for that. But however, whatever dance you bring, dance. In fact, there's that's a great song from a long time ago too, and it's a song of a mom singing to her child, and the premise is, whatever the world brings at you, I hope you dance. And that's, I want everybody to dance their dance, and that's inclusion to me, is that because if we're not including everybody, we all are missing out, right? It's not like, oh, they just don't get to participate. In fact, I think that's pretty naive to see it that way. We've all lost out, right? Because I can't contribute what you can contribute, Jason. I can't contribute what gentleman that we helped start his own business, and now we're a customer of his. He's done the logo and produces the T-shirts that Jay Nolan gives to each employee when they're hired.
That's awesome.
I can't do what he does. I'm not artistic in that way. That's not my giftedness, but it is his. And if he wasn't included, I would miss out. Every single one of my employees would miss out, and the world, who gets to see those artistic endeavors that he engages in, which are a lot, would miss out.
Speaking of the world getting to see something amazing, please talk a little about the PBS special Jay Nolan's involved in.
Oh, sure. It's again, tremendous blessing. So we had the opportunity to be featured on a small documentary segment that public television, PBS stations, affiliates throughout the country will put in between shows, because a show someday will finish, and then you've got to start the next one on the hour, and they have what they call interstitial shows. And this is called Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid's the host. Really a wonderful guy. Great acting career. It's a lot of great roles. And he does this small educational piece called Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid. And we're featured in April, actually on April 29th, 2024. Our episode will be released to 170 PBS affiliates across the country, talking again about this piece of the world that says, you know what, every human being brings that uniqueness. They need to be treated as unique and individual and celebrated, and that's how we do service. That's how we support somebody. I mean, parents, it's funny that it should be a concept, like it seems new or or whatever. It ought to seem like, well, yeah, because I mean, you raise your kids that way, right? If you got my brother and I are, I got a younger brother, and love him to death, but he is not me. He is different than me. And my parents did not treat us exactly the same. When they say, oh, you treat your kids exactly the same, you value them exactly the same, of course, because you love your kids, but you can't treat, because the same thing that worked with me would not work with him. And believe me, the things that work with him would definitely not work with me. He does not have ADHD, and, so that's naive, and we already do these things. When we get in a relationship with somebody, we know something's unique about that person. That's the engagement. We don't treat every person in our life exactly the same. That makes no sense, right? So why should we do that in any other relationships? And that's what Jay Nolan's about, is like, we are about relationship. Yes, in some cases it's a professional one where we're providing support services. Still going to be unique, and it's still going to be about that person. And that's the only way we do it. One-on-one, unique, in community. There's nothing people come to for program or services or all that. And I encourage you, watch the piece. It'll really kind of, it highlights it, and just how beautiful uniqueness is. We need to celebrate the differences and the uniqueness of people, not fight about it. You see this in the media now, the different points of view, and that's a foundation for arguing and fighting, instead of, let me share mine, let me share yours. What do we have in common? Okay, we have this part in common. How can we fix it? And we're not having those conversations anymore because we're not really being willing to engage in relationship. And when we do that, everything changes. And that's, I think, why Jay Nolan has been successful for almost 50 years. This has been about relationships.
I could talk to you for another 3 hours about this, but this is a 1 hour show. So last question I ask all my guests this. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you?
Oh, I love that, right? I just lit up about that when I first saw your presentation, read your book. For me, your imperfect best is really about, where's your heart? If your heart is in the right place, that I am seeking, like we talked about it, win to win, right? It's got to be a win-win, because it's the only option. If I'm seeking that, I may fail, I may not do it right, I may need to get more information because I blew it, whatever. Or I may have knocked it out of the park and it was awesome. Either way, my imperfect best is, what's my intention? If my intention is to grow our relationship and to see the best for you and for me in that's my imperfect best. And some days I will be better at that than others.
Well, great definition, and great conversation. Thanks for your leadership, my friend. Thanks for helping people bring out the best in themselves as they bring out the best in you. Thanks for being you.
Oh, thank you. It's a tremendous pleasure and honor to be on with you today, because I aspire to have an imperfect best as cool as you.
Hey, thank you. Oh my gosh, what an exhilarating conversation. We covered so much territory, but it all was inspiring to me, and a story about how can we show up and bring out the best in each other, and include each other in our lives, because none of us wants to live life alone. So thanks for tuning in. Please leave comments if you want. We love comments, and then be sure to tune in for another episode next week. Thanks for being you. You are the best. And I